I want to thank all of our commissioners for being present today. Commissioner Phillip, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello? Can you hear
Okay.
me?
We wanted to ask our Board of Commissioners if Ms. Phillips, she is there by phone, and we wanted to get the board to approve for her to be a part of our board meeting today via by phone, if it's okay.
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Can
Once
you
you
do the
get-
chair? Can you go ahead and take a vote on that?
Okay.
Second, you had a motion.
Yeah.
Second.
I was gonna see if she got it in, yeah, that's what I was turning to see. At this time, we got our motion and our second. At this time, we're gonna, vote for Ms. Phillip to be a part of this meeting today, June the 21st, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. So, Ms. Phillip, you're officially a part of our meeting today. If you can hear us.
She can.
Thank
She
you.
can.
She can.
She can?
We can't hear anybody who's turning the phone.
Oh, okay.
Hello? Hello?
At this time, we're gonna call for public comments. Do we have any public comments?
I have none. She has email. I have none.
Huh?
I have none through email.
Okay, is any?
Nobody says.
Okay. Thank you. There is no public comments at this time. I would like to ask the Board of Commissioners to make a motion to approve our May 17th, 2021 minutes.
Madam Chair, got to wait till she comes back.
Through the chair,
Yes.
if you want to just keep the meeting moving, you can defer taking action on the minute and
Okay.
just move into your chair's comment.
Okay.
Can't take any action until the other.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ezekiel. At this time, we will now, go forth with our agenda. At this time, there is chair comments. I want to, welcome, we have a new commissioner, a part of our board. And so we're gonna give him an opportunity, Commissioner Christopher Walker. We're gonna give him an opportunity to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair to the rest of my commissioners and those listening in. As mentioned, my name is Christopher Walker. I'm very pleased to be joining you all as part of this commission. My background is I am an attorney and I work a lot in affordable housing and affordable housing finance. So I'm very excited to add to the good work that the board's been doing and the commission's been doing. Very excited to dive into some of the details and see what the next step leads. Available, any way, shape, or form that I can be of help, I'm happy to jump in. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Walker. We are so excited to have you a part of our board. We know you bring a great information to our team so that we can just really flow as a team to get the job done here at the Jacksonville Housing Authority. Thank you again for stepping up. And to all of our commissioners this afternoon, again, I hope that all of our commissioners' fathers had a great Father's Day on yesterday. I would like to say officially to you, happy Father's Day. I know it's belated, but happy Father's Day. And so we thank all of our commissioners for your service and that you have been doing and the great work that you've been doing here at the Jacksonville Housing Authority. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Those are my conclusion of my comments at this time. At this time, we're gonna have our financial report from Mr. Dennis.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
We are looking at our financial reports as of May 31st, 2021. So we're in the 8th month of our fiscal year, so we're 2/3 of our way through our year already. And we're going to start by looking at our operating income by source. Our year-to-date operating income for all departments is $5,663,032. Looking at our central office cost center, our year-to-date budget, we're looking at income to be at 67% of our budget. Our income actually came in at 69%, so our central office income is doing very well. Our expenses, again, we're looking at 67%, and they came in just a little bit high at 68%.
Madam Chair, would you prefer we hold questions to the end, or can I ask now?
No, he'll pause once
Okay.
once he finished with this presentation, he'll pause and ask if there's any
Great,
questions.
thank you.
Yes, he'll do it on each one.
Yes. For our public housing program, our income, our year-to-date, we're looking at 67%, and our actual income is at 80%, and this is due to the closing of, the delay in the closing of the Hogan Creek property and the transforming of it to RAD. For our expenses, we're looking at income at 66%, and our actual income is at 71%. Again, it's mostly due to the Hogan Creek closing being delayed. For our Section 8 program, this is just the operating piece of our program. Our budgeted income is at 67%, and our actual income is at 68%. So our Section 8 program is doing very well.
Excuse me, is that unmuted?
Yes.
For our Section 8 operating expenses, we're right on target with our budget, 67% budget and 67% income. And then for our affordable housing property, which is Gregory West, which receives no federal funding, our income is right on target at 67%. And our expenses for Gregory West are a little bit below budget at 57%. So we're doing very good at our affordable property. And then for our RAD properties, our income target is 67%, and our actual income is at 37%. Again, this is due to the delay in Hogan Creek and it not being included in the income for the RAD properties.
Any questions for Mr. Dennis?
For our RAD properties, for the expenses,
Do you want to wait till you have one?
Commissioner, you wanted to go on, or you had one?
You go ahead, I'll wait till, you have one more? I'll wait, Madam Chair.
I have a couple more. I just have a problem with these. For our RAD properties, for our expenses, we're budgeted at 67%, and our actuals are at 47%. And then for our cash balance at the end of the month, we have total reserves of $35,314,537. And then every month we look at our quick ratio and our MENAR, and this is an indication that we use from HUD that determines our financial health. And our quick ratio is averaging just under 4 days to almost 10 days. So we're doing very well with our quick ratio. And our MENAR overall is 12.28, so we can operate for a full year based on what we currently have in our reserves. Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
to our CFO, can you just elaborate on when you say we have, I'm reading these financial slides and I'm seeing that there's what I would surplus, correct? Sorry. Good. Relative to the surplus, are those allocated on, do you differentiate the bucket between a capital reserve bucket of funds and surplus funds? And what's the difference, or are they all allocated into a general surplus account?
Each program is separate.
Okay,
So for Section 8, that's the only one that we really differentiate between buckets. For Section 8, we have an admin fee reserve and a HAP reserve.
Yep.
The admin fee reserve is restricted for the Section 8 program for operations. The HAP reserve is restricted to Section 8 for housing assistance.
okay. And then through the chair, so what would you say, just high level, what is our uncommitted, in other words, or uncommitted or
Unrestricted.
unrestricted capital reserves, roughly?
It's hard to say exactly.
Okay.
Each program is restricted.
Right.
So for public housing, for example, we have funds available, but they're restricted to public housing.
Understood. So,
So we would have probably $2 or $3 million that are currently unrestricted in our central office, in our affordable property, and in our business activity.
okay. Would it be possible for the next meeting to have a breakdown on what those reserves are
Yes.
relative to program
Yes.
and what's a true unrestricted reserve?
I might be giving you a low number because I don't want
That's
to
okay.
be too high.
No, I appreciate that.
Yes.
And then when you say we're running approximately 67% budget, I'm assuming that's through fiscal year, which is ending August,
September 30th.
September 30th? Okay, great. And then are you projecting surplus funds for the end of the year, or do you project to be right on budget?
We should have a surplus at the end of the year.
Okay,
Pretty much every department.
okay. And has action been taken on the surplus of where you're gonna allocate it yet, or just go to general surplus?
It goes to general surplus usually.
Okay.
Technically, when we have a surplus in public housing, HUD wants to restrict that to operations
Sure.
and doesn't like us using it for capital projects. Now, with capital needs being the way they are, they do allow us to use some of it, but it's,
So that begs the question, our NEMAR score, you said is about 12.6, which means we have about 12 months worth of operating expenses already capitalized.
Yep.
And maybe this is through the chair, Mr. Alexander, what would need to be done to reconstitute some of those funds? That seems like a very healthy reserve, you know, which in my line of the world is almost unnecessary.
right.
Is there a way to do that?
It would be through the budgeting process and having the board approve capital improvements with that money.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, did you finish your report, Mr. Dennis? Okay, great, all right. Mr. Dennis has completed his financials. Can I get a motion for our financials?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Chair,
Yes.
I mean, you certainly can approve the financials, but you typically don't. It's not necessary, it's just a report.
Okay. Okay. At this time, we're gonna go back to our agenda and we're gonna go back to approve our minutes for May the 17th, 2021. Since all of our commissioners now are present. Commissioner Phillips, can you hear us? Can I get a motion for our minutes for May 17th, 2021?
So moved.
I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, we did approve for you to participate in the meeting.
Yes, I heard all of that. I just was not unmuted, so I couldn't respond to you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion was made by Commissioner Briggs, second by Commissioner Annabelle. At this time, can I get a vote to approve our minutes for May the 17th, 2021? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Our minutes have been accepted. There's no correction needs to be made to our minutes for May the 17th, 2021. Moving back to our agenda, at this time, we will have our resolutions presentation by Mr. Alexander. Our first resolution is 2021 JHA 17.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. We bring before the board today, we looking to get that resolution 2021 JHA 17 to approve the PHA Civil Rights Certification of compliance with the PHA annual plan. And this certification is what we bring in front of the board every year to show that we are in sync with the processes as far as civil rights certification in our PHA plan. And then this plan basically is certifying that we have a resident advisory board and that we do have boards. And we also conform to Title IV and the Section 504 Rehabilitation Act. And one of the other key things in this certification is that we have waiting lists, and our waiting list is full. We have full disclosure for our waiting list. And then we do have site-based waiting lists, and also that we comply with the Section 3 program. So we bring this in front of the board each year. We ask that the board approve it so we can continue on with this process.
I'll make a,
Go ahead, Commissioner Green.
I'll make a motion so we can have a discussion.
All right, the motion has been made. Can I get a second for discussion?
A second.
Okay, the floor is open now for discussion for resolution 2021 JHA 17.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to, thank you for that, Mr. Alexander. I just want to verify that all 22 items have been implemented and we comply with all 22 items.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Walker.
Madam Chair, to Mr. Alexander, I thank you for that question, Commissioner. Not only do I want to verify they're in place, Mr. Alexander, but who is monitoring these from the JHA side, and have these been run, when was the last time we actually sat down and gone through these and make sure we actually comply?
Very good question. Actually, right now, we're going out for our annual plan that shows that we are, one of the things with our annual plan, we go out every year with any significant changes to the housing authority. So we monitor our annual plan on an annual basis, and last year we had a 5-year plan. So our annual plan is done every year to make sure that we're in compliance, and it's a part, and it follows the City of Jacksonville consolidated plan. And we also do the 5-year plan, and within these plans, they update these plans every year, and all these things are compliant.
So through the chair, is there somebody, other than you, is there somebody on staff who manages this?
Yes, we have a compliance department.
Compliance department?
Yes, keep
Great.
us on point, and actually, our annual plan is on our website right now. It's out for public comments to be out. We have a public hearing on July 27th.
Excellent. And then relative, you mentioned the 5-year plan that was submitted last year, and you're doing an annual plan. Has HUD ever given us any feedback on any of these certification items?
No, we have been very good with them because we have always exceed the requirements of these plans. And to a point that actually we just about 2 months ago have a compliance review, a civil rights compliance review. And HUD asked us for documents. We provided over 20,000 documents, or pages of documents, and we haven't heard anything yet back from them.
Madam Chair, relative to this matter, I think it would be prudent that if the board so chooses to approve this resolution today, that we would attach or have some certification of the information that was submitted with this plan for purposes of our board records.
Any other discussion on resolution 17? Commissioner Phillip, you have any discussion on resolution 17?
No, Madam Chair, I don't, but, was the commissioner making a recommendation that we need to act on as far as the compliance issue?
Madam Chair, to my colleague, I think my recommendation, and if necessary, amend the motion to approve the resolution subject to the actual plans for purposes of the meeting, if that is necessary.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. I mean, typically, and I actually emailed Dwayne prior to the board meeting to see if you guys could get a copy of the plan, because Dwayne, you stated that you're in the process of going through your regular hearings.
Yes,
So the plan actually won't be approved and ready to submit to HUD until we go through the public hearings
yes.
required.
So the plan is not
Yes.
complete.
And
Right.
well, this is for the civil rights plan, but this is a part of all that process of the annual plan, and the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan, which is also the PHA plan, is done. I actually sent it to you. You might have it in your email, but sometimes it kicks back because it's such a large file. But yes, I can provide that document to this.
But through the chair, this certification
Yes.
though is being attached to the annual PHA.
Yes.
That's what's checked here.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay, so has that plan been complete? Because if it hasn't.
Yes, yes, it has.
It has been
Yes.
completed? Okay, so I think we can, it's a friendly amendment because this certification, it states already in the document that this will become a part of that annual PHA plan. So friendly amendment to just make sure that Mr. Alexander attaches the actual plan to this certification document.
Okay, so did all commissioners hear what our legal team told us to do when we get ready
And
to
who
make
made,
the
I'm sorry,
motion?
who made the motion through the chair?
I did. I make the motion.
Can you accept that as a friendly?
I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you can second it, Commissioner. Okay, so it was,
We're in good order.
Yeah.
You accepted it.
okay, all right. Okay, so any other discussion on it? Commissioner Phillip, did you hear what our legal, team said?
Yes, I'm able to hear everything that's being said.
Okay, you have any comments before we get ready to take it for a vote?
Mhm. No comment.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. Can I get a motion to close our discussion? I'm sorry, we're gonna close the discussion. Any other? Discussion. At this time, we're gonna open it to any public comments before we vote? Any public comments? Seeing that there's no public comments, at this time, we're gonna ask the Board of Commissioners if you would make a motion so we can make a vote to, resolution 2021-17.
We have a motion. I just need to vote.
The vote.
Okay. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Right, Ms. Phillip?
I voted affirmatively, yes.
Okay. Our next resolution, 2021 JHA 18. Mr. Alexander?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. This resolution, JHA 2021-18, is to approve JHA-wide refuge service new contract. This contract is for $515,000. This will be the first year contract, renewable each year. We had 2 vendors go out and bid for this contract, and the current contract is won by the current vendor. Any questions?
I move the motion. I'll make a motion so we can have discussion.
It was moved by Commissioner Briggs. I need a second. for discussion?
I second.
The second by Commissioner Annabelle. The floor is now open for discussion for resolution 18.
I'll just, Madam Chair, I didn't see the supporting document for this resolution in my email, and I know I'm looking for it, I just didn't see it. And I was trying to get some more details on the two vendors. I know that we did the procurement process.
Yes. We just scoring right there for the two contractors, Public Service and Meridian Waste.
And Mr. Alexander, you know what my next question is going to be.
Yes.
The reason why I was looking for those documents because I was trying to get a handle on minority participation for the vendors, both of them, and you know, what that looked like in terms of the outcome, the award. So I don't have any problem with the vendor. I just want to be able to review that, you know, at some point.
Yes, for sure. Most definitely.
Madam Chair, to Mr. Alexander, if I may, could we bring that scoring metric back up for a second? Mr. Alexander, I gotta commend, if I read the resolution, everything, I want to commend you and your team because it looks like we procured this contract for 5 figures less than the current.
Yeah, well, no, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Do you expect any issues, different changes in service? I'm curious, what led to was it a $50,000 or more reduction in price?
It was 70,000.
70,000? What led to the reduction, out of curiosity?
That
seems like a big discount to me. I'm very happy, but that's for a waste contract yeah, I'm curious.
Folks need work now and then, you know, I guess the procurement officer could probably answer that better than me. I was just happy to see we get a reduction.
Yeah. Okay. I have no further questions.
So are you referring it, Mr. Alexander, to your team is on, you referring it to them, or you're just saying, oh, okay.
I get that
Did you-
information from them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you say something?
Just wanted to make sure we get that savings, yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions? If that, Commissioner Phillip, you have anything?
I heard, I believe Mr. Alexander say that there were 2 bids. Is that what you said, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, ma'am. There's only 2 vendors that's bid, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so was the bid from the existing contractor reduced based on what the experience was in collection? Is it done by pounds or what was the rationale behind the reduced cost? Or is that the information you're trying to obtain?
I will obtain that information from my procurement officer and provide it to them.
Okay. Yeah, because I agree with the commissioner. Typically, you don't see a reduction in the cost of waste because the tipping fees and the costs that are associated with it generally tend to go up unless you are disposing of less than what was estimated as far as the tonnage goes.
Okay. I'll get that information and provide it to the board.
So are we going to pass this, Madam Chairman, until we get that information and come back to it?
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yes.
I was just saying, Madam Chair, Mr. Alexander, when does our current waste management contract expire?
It's expired.
It has expired.
Yes.
And are we on month to month at the moment?
Yes, we are.
And this may be a question back to Dennis, Mr. Laura, if you don't know, but do you know, is the month contract at the moment any more expensive than what we were paying annualized over the term of the existing?
Let me see if procurement officer is on. Do you see Colleen on?
I'm on.
No, you on, Colleen? Could you answer that question?
Yes, sir. So it's the same price. They haven't changed any of our pricing. And it's the increase or decrease in cost is just an overall labor savings. That's what was explained to me when I asked about that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Colleen.
Did you?
I only have one other question, which, Madam Chairman, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
and it appears that we need to act on it. Can you tell me why this is only coming before the board now after the contract has expired? This is a renewable or new, annual thing that we have to do. So why has the contract already expired? Why wasn't it brought to us earlier, I guess is my question.
Ms. Colleen, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, the contract expired on June 1st. So it was just, there was a delay in the bidding process, and that's why it was late.
Okay, I heard the answer, but obviously with a contract of this nature, we don't want to put ourselves behind the 8 ball in having to approve something after it's already expired. So just recommend that in the future we try and have these things calendared in such a way that we can approve them in advance.
Yeah, we try.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Phillip. At this time, we're gonna go ahead and move to vote for 2021 JHA 18. Any public comments before we take our vote? Seeing that there's no public comments at this time, can we take our vote? Board of Commissioners, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing that it has passed. Thank you. Our president report from Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I passed out a copy, and I'll make sure I send it into email to all the other commissioners who's not present today. But you have a draft copy of the strategic plan. Each department worked diligently on this document. We worked with an outside firm. We completed as far as we go at this point. We have scheduled on July 6th, typically July 26th. Typically during the month of July, we don't have a board meeting. And after talking to the chair, we scheduled July 26th as a tentative date for the retreat. Ms. Kara from Nan McKay will be in to assist us with this process, as well with another vendor coming in to help us about this strategic plan. We went from a department perspective. We've done everything that we like to see in there. Just want to be able to get your vision and your ideas on what would you like to see inside this document. A financial audit, we met with Berman Hopkins earlier this week, Zoom call. Finance audit is going extremely well. They did note that some of the issues that they had in the past, they don't. You have a question, Commissioner?
Yes, I was gonna wait till you finish.
Yes, okay.
I thought you said we're gonna do it on the 26th or the 19th?
The 26th of July.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought it was 19th, okay.
That's the 26th of July,
Okay.
which will be the 3rd Monday of the month. And we
That's
place
the
it
fourth, that's the fourth Monday.
Yes, 4th.
But I thought we talked about the 3rd Monday.
Yes, the 26th is today.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
Can I ask a question real quick about the strategic plan? Just at first glance, I haven't had a chance to look it over, but did we have any resident input into the plan?
We have resident services with some input in here. The stored drafts form, Each department head tackled each department from their perspective, and we are still modifying this document as we move forward.
Okay, so there will be a space or section for resident input and how they envision, what their thoughts are on envisioning the
Yes,
housing authority moving forward.
yes. Okay, so, and finishing with the discussion with the auditor, they'll be back the second week of July. We should be bringing audit to the board sometime in September. It's a little behind, but it's because of COVID. But HUD has extended all the way into December
Right.
2021. My next item is, thank God, we have finally closed Hogan Creek. We closed Hogan Creek on the 17th last week. It was a long ordeal. We've been working on this project for more than a year and a half. We are very excited with this transaction. I want to thank Ms. Ezekiel Hodges and her department. They've done an excellent job in supporting us and helping us. And we also want to thank Saxon and Gilmore, along with all the staff members and Fallon and Associates. This was a great deal. Actually, in another 2 weeks, they had the mock-up units completed for us, 606 and 1514, which will be ready in a couple weeks. I did give you all in your package some renderings of the floor tiles that we'll be using in that development, as well as the cabinets and the countertops in there. So we're very excited. It's 183 units, gut rehab, and it'd be construction that should be last a little bit more than a year. Next thing, we actually, last board meeting, I had a discussion that we received 186 vouchers. HUD came back and modified the numbers. That 186 vouchers was $1.4 million. Well, we got 196, which is $1.5 million for 196 vouchers. We are working with our local partners with these vouchers. All of these vouchers will come out of the coordinated entry system. They will not come out of our system. They will come out of coordinated entry they make. We are able to make some referrals, but the referrals will come from them. And we've been working with the Mental Health Resource Center, Changing Homeless, to Hubbard House, and the city of Jacksonville. We've been having ongoing meetings. That money will be in full effect July the 1st, and we want to make sure that we have our folks in place to start leasing those units up, leasing those families up with those vouchers. Also, I mentioned a little bit earlier that we had that civil rights compliance review. We responded to it. It's been a couple months. We haven't heard anything back from them. As I mentioned last time in the board meeting, it's the first time that they ever had that civil rights. It's been years, more than 10 to 12 years since they've done a review. We provide them information. We haven't heard anything from them, but we responded to them. Also, we received another compliance review, and this is through the Community Planning and Development Department. They want to review our grant program that is monitoring a grant number, and I put the grant number here. It's Shelter Plus Care Villages Supportive Housing. I notified the CEO of that program that they want to review that program as well. And I also talked about the Jacksonville Housing Authority in the process submitting our fiscal year annual plan, which is Tuesday, July 27th, where we have the public hearing. We have it out now for public comments. And again, we are in sync with the City of Jacksonville Consolidated Plan Actually, we hit on just about everything they had in there for the Housing Authority. And also at the last meeting, we had the last 2 meetings, I mentioned that we had an inquiry from the OIG. We have interviewed several folks in relation to this specific OIG inquiry, and we had already started taking corrective action based on this. Any questions?
I am, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Since you put it in your report, I'm tempted to ask what the OIG report, I mean, what the concern is about, inquiries about. I know these things are confidential, but is there any information you can provide to us more than just this?
I would defer that question to our HR director.
Without.
Right, so the OIG inquiry was in relation to our conflict of interest policy, dealing with vendor relationships and employees, our outside employment policy, so in our procurement process.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
So, but through the chair, but respectfully, no, not good enough. Why are they inquiring about our conflict of interest policy, and was there an actual violation of this policy?
So yes.
Okay, and through the chair, has corrective action been taken against whomever this might have occurred against?
So I am going to say that we concluded the investigation as of today.
Okay.
So additional information can be provided at a later time.
It's due today though, right? It says here due June 21.
Correct.
So it's due today?
It is completed.
Okay, it's complete.
Right. The investigation is completed. So the HRME is going to defer the latter question to a later time. And then we can give you an update.
Sorry.
To the HR director, is a report, so there was an actual investigation?
So there was
That report is gonna come from that investigation?
So we originally had a management inquiry where the OIG inquired and asked information from us. We provided it to them. And then they submitted us a memo of corrective action. So there is corrective action that is being taken as a result of that. So they submitted several items that they wanted us to look into and provide them action on those items.
Okay.
The chair, we're happy to meet. I mean, I just got it. This is the first I'm hearing this, so I don't, there are confidentiality provisions. I don't know actually if it applies. I don't know with every single question that goes to ORG. I know clearly we went through a full-blown investigation and that whole entire process was confidential. So I agree with the HR director's sort of recommendation to just give you additional information, and our office is happy to meet with you individually to give you, more, answer more questions or provide you with that information. But one of the things, this is a nice segue when we get to the bylaws and our board policy, is that when should this information be brought to the board level? And so just kind of think about that as we go through the governance that we're going to be working on later on in the agenda.
Okay, I'll second for that.
Madam Chair, and just, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. And let me put it out there. Every time we receive an inquiry, I always make sure I bring it to the board's attention. There was an investigation originally because most of the times when, with the exception of big investigation they done, it's normally an inquiry. And we have been working, you might not know, but we have been working, I've met with general counsel from the city in this area. So we've been trying to keep her in the loop. But I'll make sure I keep you in the loop.
Hold on a second, Ms. Tappy. Okay. Ms. Alexander, I want to say to what you just said, that yes, you did tell the board that there had been some increase. I think you told us back in May as well as, I want to say April, but I know you said it in May. Okay.
And Madam Chair, anytime we get an inquiry from the OIG, or we have a compliance review with HUD, because these can be some very complicated situations. I always try to make sure I bring that information to my board. I don't want my board to be blindsided by anything that I didn't bring them. So when we have these type of inquiries, the civil rights inquiry, this inquiry with these grants, we bring it to the board's attention.
Yes, sir. Okay, hold 1 second, Commissioner. Ms. Dunn?
Through Madam Chair, I was just going to confirm that we brought the management inquiry in May. It actually turned into a memo of corrective action in June. So fortunately, today is the deadline and also the board meeting that it was on the agenda item.
And I was just going to say, just, I have confidence in the process and what my understanding of the process is. As long as it's an inquiry, we don't know anything about it until it's completed. And typically, from what I understand, once it's completed, then that information can be shared with us.
Yes.
So from my perspective, administratively, I'm comfortable with, with the follow-up from administration, at least as long as there is back and forth between that and the OIG office. So my curiosity was that, if it was finished, if it was completed, then there may be more details that we don't know. So I'm good.
Commissioner Walker, did you have anything?
I'm good, thank you. I'll wait for the bylaws.
Legal team? Ms. Alexander, are you finished?
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Brock, if I may, and I'm sorry, I'm getting up to speed to the rest of my commissioners. I don't mean to belabor this. Just a couple of quick questions. In the audit, there's a note here that said the prior compliance issues, and again, I'm getting up to speed. What were those compliance issues, and did we have any derogative marks from our auditors?
Yeah, well, what it was, we had we had one finding from this particular audit, which was file audits. There was no, far as no finances, it was more so the compliance of the Section 8 program. And we corrected that problem. And one of my concerns is when the auditor is here, I'm always concerned and want to make sure that there is no mismanagement of funds, which haven't been the case, as well as that the Section 8 program is functioning, because the Section 8 program here is $60 million department. So we want to make sure we're in 100% compliance in that department. And they are the largest funding department in this agency. So we always want to make sure we are 100% in compliance when they come and managing that Section 8 program.
Okay. And then my other question, I'll demur more towards the finance people, but is this a new audit firm? How long have we had this audit firm? When was the last time we looked at the audit firms?
They have been here since I've been here.
So at least 2 years?
Yes. Yes, they've been here since how long they've been here? I assume they've been here for a very good time, very long time. Have they been here for a long time?
At least
10 years. Yes.
So I'll demur, if I may, through the chair to Commissioner Fernandez, as not the finance professional, but is that something we should eventually look into?
It depends if there's a requirement to change auditors on a regular basis. On the private sector, it's 5 years, right? You need to rotate your audit partner. So it depends. There may be actions within the firm, changing the main partner or who is looking at our files that we can go around. But there clearly is no regulation in terms of
Yes.
rebidding the process. If you're happy with them, there might just be, they probably have some sort of internal partner rotation. So if you want to get that information for us. Who is the auditor again?
Berman Hopkins. Very good accounting firm.
Yeah.
I know they work with many of the housing authorities in the state of Florida. Very reputable. They do very good work. And they seem to work very well with our finance department.
That's great.
But we do have a couple, not doing audit, but we do work with a couple other accounting firms, BDO, we work with them, and we also work with
co-resident.
Co-resident, yes.
Yeah, through the chair, and this may not be the time, but I do think, it would, with a full slate of commissioners coming on board,
Right.
kind of moving on from things of the past, I do think that it would be at least prudent to talk about putting out an RFP and letting a group respond. I think that would be prudent. But I'll defer to the chair if that's something she wants to entertain in the new business or at a later date.
Okay, any other?
Yes, through the chair, what are our audit fees on an annual basis?
I am not sure offhand what the contract is. I believe it's close to 140,000.
Through the chair, if I can, I'll just keep going down through our list here. So you mentioned the coordinated entry wait list. Can you expand on what that means and why we can't pull from our wait list, please?
Because HUD, these are the rules set up by HUD.
Okay.
And because these are the emergency housing vouchers. These are not the typical vouchers. And these vouchers are to go directly to folks that have been impacted by the COVID pandemic.
So so these vouchers, I'm assuming then they've got an expiration date on them and they will not count towards our regular allotment.
That is correct.
And how long are these good for? A year?
Until the year 2022.
2022.
Yes.
Okay, and in our evaluation, are we going to be looking at are you going to be looking at, taking somebody and using these vouchers that doesn't put somebody in an adverse position, meaning we get them in and then the vouchers expire and then they're left without something?
Well, unfortunately, HUD funds the vouchers, and if a family gets the voucher, as long as they have the voucher, they will continue to fund the voucher. But if they leave the program and we are not able to reuse that voucher, so
Okay, so
as long as they need it.
so it's 196 vouchers.
Right.
And as long as the user of the voucher stays in the program, it can be used beyond 2022?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So,
But as they fall off, we won't be able to renew them.
got it. And we can only use it through the coordinated entry program, not
Yes.
through our wait list.
That is correct. We can make some recommendations, but we can make a referral. But
Interesting.
we will not come from our system. It will come from their system.
And when you say make a referral, is that, explain that process. I'm not familiar. I know our wait list, but explain the
Yes.
referral process.
We can make a referral to them, and from what I understand, they have about 2,000 people on that waiting list. So if we may make a referral for someone to go over there, say we have someone that may meet one of the criterias.
Yeah.
That may be a veteran, but just use that for lack of, anyone. We would send them over there to the program because they have those 196 vouchers. Depending on how many veterans they have on their waiting list, that veteran may go up to the front of the waiting list, or it may be at a much higher number than they would be on our waiting list.
Yeah.
Considering the size of our waiting list.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I would note that we did ask for 500 additional vouchers.
In addition to these 196?
That is correct.
And what's the status on those? Any idea?
We haven't heard anything. I was a little shocked when we got additional 11 from the 196, from the 186 to 195. So I was always taught you show the ass. If they don't give me the 500 and give us 250, I know the needs of the city of Jacksonville. We can definitely use the voucher. One of the challenges is just being able to find units for them. So we are working to try to make offers in the sense of giving incentives to landlords to possibly, allow people to use the vouchers.
And my understanding is that the partners that you're working with,
Yes.
they're also helping with the transition for people who are receiving these vouchers and the families who receive these vouchers, because that's where the need is, correct?
Right.
So wouldn't they be also you know, on the back end as well, maybe they're not transitioning into using a voucher once it expires, once the time for it expires, one of our current vouchers, right?
So here's our logic with this whole process. If in fact, it's 10, say they have their list, they have about 2,000 people on a coordinated entry list. And out of the 2,000 people, 50 of them are veterans. Well, we said we wouldn't even want to waste that 196 voucher on the veterans. We could just ease them right over to our program because we have vouchers available.
The badge vouchers.
Right.
Got
We have the badge vouchers. So we can ease them over to that program. So there's a number of ways we can maneuver around this, but the fact of the matter is they all have to come from that coordinated entry program.
When you say the coordinated entry, and I apologize, I'm going to ask a question, but through the chair, who manages the coordinated entry program?
There's a group of them.
Okay. Are those groups here?
Yes.
Okay, and you're in regular contact with them?
We have a weekly meeting.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Great.
Because each one of them would love to be able to just take the 196.
I'm sure they would.
You know, everybody has a need for them. We would love to be able to use them for ourselves. So you have to make sure it's fair and it's equitable and everyone has a fair shot with them. So we came up with some rules to be able to govern how these vouchers will be used. Yes.
And even if they could, they still would be challenged with managing housing. You
Yes.
have to be on that end to make sure that's managed, so, you know, the housing availability, I should say.
Yes. That is a challenging aspect, yes.
Commissioner Anabel has
Yes,
something
ma'am.
to say.
To the chair, do you have any idea of what this shortage may be in 2022 of housing units? If you were to assume you want to fully utilize the 196 vouchers.
It's a
And you may
major-
not have it now,
It's
but
a major shortage. It's a major shortage in Jacksonville. And I talk about this all the time. It's a big crisis, clean across the country for a shortage of units and affordable housing needs. And Jacksonville is sort of switched in a sense, because when you look at the industry back in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, it was very trendy to be able to purchase a building, which was reasonable, and apply a Section 8 voucher to it. Because you get it for a reasonable price, and then you could put a Section 8 person in there and say if you had a 3-bedroom house, you can get about $700 or $750. Well, them same units that was always getting a Section 8 voucher, now these units are worth $1,500 or $2,000, and there's a college student moving into these units. So you find these units very hard to locate. We do use a Section 8, it's called Go Section 8 program. So listen, last time I checked this, yesterday they had about 6 or 7 pages of units on there. But one of the things that I think that the federal government should do is they should come with another way of doing fair market rents. They have to increase the rents because the 3-bedroom fair market rents can't compete with the regular fair market rents.
Yeah.
So you have folks that constantly looking for units. When you take most housing authorities are losing units. We may be one of the few housing authorities have, but when you look over the years at how this housing authority has lost units since the original Durkee bill, the original Blodgett, they lost units then, and they haven't replaced those units. So even though we've done Jack's Beach, we need to embark on a new goal of trying to bring some more units or put some more units out there. Because if not, we were sitting there, and if you look at our.
We've discussed this
Yes.
before. What is the landlord incentive landscape? What does that even look like?
They haven't done much of anything. We had put it out there, a couple of other housing authorities put it out there, $400. You get some movement on there, but it's not a whole lot of movement. It's very complicated to put a family in it, as I mentioned earlier, a 3-bedroom house, where they can get up to $2,000 or $2,500. It's very competitive,
Yeah, this one.
very competitive. And it's diminishing. The opportunities are diminishing.
Through the chair to Commissioner Fernandez, I can speak firsthand through my other experiences to say that not only is it a crisis today in affordable housing and the shortage of actual units, it's going to be for a long time, which, one of the conversations that I think this commission needs to have is my view on this is JHA needs to be in the market to acquire or build affordable housing.
We've had this discussion in the past through the chair to Mr. Walker. We do have cash flows in our balance sheet, about $30 million that should be redeployed before this. But it's difficult with new locations, whether it's from the land development stage all the way up or new buildings that we can acquire. That should be our primary focus.
Could
I know
not
how
agree more.
challenging that is.
Could not agree more.
100%, yes.
May I, through the chair to Mr. Alexander, so my question for you then would be this, is if we said today, go buy something, do you have identified targets, financial metrics figured out as to what that would look like?
Yes. We don't have it all down, but yes, I have, because I'm in the industry, I've had my focus on this market for a very long time since I've been here, and it would be easy to put a strategy together to start acquiring some properties.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Commissioner.
The only thing that I was going to add is that because of our agreement with HUD, there are certain geographic areas in which we can and others that we cannot place affordable housing. And so as a part of what this discussion is about, looking to the future and the placement of affordable housing, there are some restrictions on where we can and cannot apply, where we can or cannot provide units based on our agreement that we have with the Housing and Urban Development Department. And so all of that would have to be taken into consideration too. But the need is great, and it's something that certainly we have talked about in the past, and some of the partnerships that we are doing with local developers is a first step, I guess, if you would, in order to be able to secure additional units for affordable housing. But it's not enough, as you said. We need to do more.
Through the chair to Commissioner, I think it's Commissioner Phil. I agree. I think it'll be important as a commission that we go forward. I think you're absolutely right relative to public housing and where we can and can't place units with our HUD restrictions. I think affordable housing, little a, affordable, not defined term, but true affordable housing, we should look at. I would posit to Mr. Alexander, with the limited knowledge I have, and I'm just getting into it. I mean, I would like to see before our next board meeting a coherent acquisition strategy and financing strategy to acquire, and I would say it's at least 500 units of affordable housing. I'd like to understand what a 10-year pro forma would look like on that. I'd like you to pursue and understand what the debt parameters around that would be, including various finance options, whether that's housing bonds or anything like that. But we need a coherent strategy. Sitting here, all due respect, sitting here and talking about it isn't enough. For me, I'd like to see what that strategy looks like.
Okay.
The other thing which I'll say through the chair to the rest of my commissioners is I see this a lot, and it may not be a popular opinion, but it is my opinion that we in this room talk about affordable housing through a different lens than what a lot of people see affordable housing. And what some people may call affordable housing is not actually affordable housing. And I do think at some point, Mr. Alexander, there needs to commence a dialogue with the city council to talk about how we are involved in true affordable housing going forward. It seems to me your KPIs are nothing short of great. And I commend you for that, Mr. Alexander. Your collections are on point. Your unit turn times and maintenance issues in less than 48, 72 hours is amazing. I mean, industry standard is 5 to 7 days if you're lucky.
Right.
I'm thoroughly impressed by that, and you and I just met. So based on all of that, I would say at this point, and I'm sure there's other things, bylaws that we need to look at and strategic planning we need to do, but this problem is only going to get worse. The market is only going to get more expensive, and the need is only going to increase. So, Madam Chair, and again, I don't know if this is, I don't think we need a motion on this. I think it's more of just a directive to Mr. Alexander to say, let's see a plan. Let's not talk about it. Let's put something on paper and look at it.
Right. So, Ms. Alexander, I guess hearing all of that, you have your work cut out for you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions to Ms. Alexander about his report? Any other questions? Okay, that being, Commissioner Phillip, you have any other questions to Mr. Alexander about his report?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving to our agenda, old and new business. I want to open for discussion for old and new business to the Board of Commissioners. Can I get a motion to open up for discussion for old and new business?
So moved. No need?
Yeah, you don't need a motion for that. Okay, all right. So, under old business, do any commissioners have any thoughts about old business before I speak? Any commissioners have any thoughts about old business?
Madam Chair, this is Rosalind. At the last meeting, we discussed reaching out to the mayor's office and the city council, and we're happy for our new commissioner today, but I believe we still have one vacancy at this time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And were we able to get any feedback?
Yeah.
It was really out of order.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Phillip. I was telling them they were out of order. Can you go ahead and finish speaking?
I'm done. Thank you very much. I was just asking
You
what.
was out of order. You were speaking, and they were speaking while you were speaking, and I was saying to them that they were out of order because you had the floor.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chairman. But I think I completed my question. It was just any update on the outreach that we had requested at the last meeting relative to filling of the vacancies. We are happy that we have the new commissioner with us today, but I believe there is one additional one. And do we have any status update on that?
Yes, ma'am. We do. I'm gonna answer you in a minute, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner, old business? Any other commissioner?
Madam Chair, I noted Commissioner Phillips mentioned status update on the commissioner, the vacancy, but I think we also asked that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I gotcha.
I'm sorry. For the benefit of our new
Through the chair, if you wouldn't mind filling me in, Commissioner Riggs.
We had asked the chair to meet with our rules, council rules committee chair, as well as council president, because they had established a resolution asking that we not address the CEO position, permanent CEO position, prior to having seated all 7 board members. So, and then because we were so close, we'd asked the chair to go in and just to make sure we were in good standing with the city council as we had attempt to address that piece of business.
I think I'll let the chair report out on that one before I make any comment whatsoever.
Now you know how you got here.
Okay. So up under our old business, I was gonna address it, but since Commissioner Phillip brought it up, I did do, as the board asked, I did reach out to the mayor's office. I reached out, about city council, our liaison, and the instruction that I received from the mayor's office was that, of course, we were gonna get our sixth board member, which is Commissioner Walker, and then they have in the making are 7. But they said, she said that it probably wouldn't go through completion until August, okay, for the 7th board member. Probably it would take them about August to get him or she completed through, coming on the board. President, City Council President, they are getting ready to, and I'm gonna lean on our legal team to help me out if I mess it up. They're getting ready to transition from the current City Council President, which is President Tommy Lazuri. He will be out of office on the 28th, am I correct?
At the end of this month.
The end of this month. So, Miss Rachel, who is in the mayor's office, suggested to me that she didn't think, correct me if I'm wrong again to our legal team, that it would be good to go to the current president, because he may not make any actions on what the city council leaders had put in place for our board about asking us to wait until we had a full board. So she was saying that I might wanted to reach out to the incoming president, and which I did, and we're waiting to get a meeting with him. So I was also told that I found out that he reassigned, because assignments 2 was coming up, am I right? Assignments was coming up for our liaison. So the appointment was given back to our current liaison that we have, okay, which is Councilman Dennis. So he's still gonna be our liaison. So I had not reached out to him yet, because the way the mayor's office told me it should go to the president first, then to the liaison. So that's why I did not reach out to him yet. But I did do the instructions that was given. Am I correct, Ms. Lizzie? Ma'am?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And if they continue to do as they did when I was in local government, the city council will basically be on recess for the month of July. So you're right, there won't be any movement at all during the time that they're on recess. And so it will be August, unfortunately, before we get any response back or any action relative to that resolution.
Right, through the chair, the council typically has 2 meetings a month, so in the month of July, they take a 2-week break, so they only have 1 meeting in July.
Right.
And committee session as well.
Right. Okay, and that's right, and so that's why it's gonna push us out to August, and that's what, that was what I was told when I reached out to the mayor's office.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question of our distinguished professional legal
Okay.
counsel? The legislation was filed for this appointment?
It was, yeah, so I can give you his name, it's Andre Green, it was filed last Wednesday, so it will be introduced into city council at tomorrow's meeting, and it'll come out of city council for 3rd action on August the 10th.
And when is our scheduled August meeting by chance? I know I
The
have the
3rd
date.
Monday in August, so by the time so you have a break in July, very good point, you have a break in July, and when you come back in August, you'll have, 7 members.
So
Assuming the council approves that. okay?
assuming, yes.
Usually they do. The mayor's office put forth very great appointments, just like your distinguished self.
Getting a phone call now.
Really?
Madam Chair, if I may, on the old business topic, specifically about this. So what I know on this subject is only what I've read through media reports and through, some digging and old meetings. I am, what's the word I'm looking for? Go ahead. Did you want to say something? I'm so sorry.
I was gonna let you know, I don't know how much you have pulled up or seen, but we did do a national search.
Oh, yeah. So if I may, Madam Chair, here's my point, which is as commissioners of this organization, I do think there is wisdom to making sure we have a full board appointed before making any of these decisions. However, as commissioners of this organization, we're going on 26 months. And all due respect to the candidates that withdrew, I don't understand that logic. I don't necessarily want to understand it. But I will say that, in my opinion, we have an extremely qualified person sitting in this room with us with an interim. And I would be loath and personally disappointed if we didn't take action on that no later than the August meeting. So I do think that this needs to be a robust discussion amongst the commissioners. All due respect to Mr. Alexander, probably not with him in the room present when we have that conversation, but it needs to be a robust conversation and a decision needs to be made one way or the other. 2 years of an interim person, not having the official backing of a commission is disconcerting at best, and frankly doesn't serve this commissioner or its residents. And so I am pleased to wait until the 7th member of this commission, but I do not think that this conversation should proceed further than our August meeting.
And just to put on the record.
That has been the intention.
Yeah,
Okay.
The same as you said, we have said that, but we also, the Board of Commissioners also wanted to make sure too, that we had the blessings. That's why they wanted me to go to City Council, because they wanted us to make sure we had the blessings of our City Council leaders in making this. And we wanted to make that appeal. That was the reason that I'm reaching out to the president, because we want to make that appeal that in the event that we don't get the 7th person, can we go ahead and make a move on this? Because not only has it been 2, but we're moving closely to 3 years.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I couldn't agree more. I would, correct me if I'm wrong, through the chair to our council, this is a non-binding resolution, correct? So, Madam Chair, while I certainly appreciate City Council wanting, and putting that out there, and I think it was wise for them to do it, I do think that whether it be through you, Madam Chair, or through Mr. Alexander, although that puts him in a very uncomfortable position depending on how this goes, I think we should make clear to our colleagues at City Council that we intend to act on this in August, all due respect, regardless of whether a 7th commissioner is appointed. And if they'd like to have conversations with us, now's the time, especially over recess, because this is not what's in the best interest of JHA to continue this under this current structure.
Exactly.
And I would, I admire the folks from City Council for what they've done and how they've looked at this, but I do think it's time that we put a date where a decision will be made one way or the other.
Yes, sir.
But I think that the whole, like Chairman Brock mentioned, the intent was for us to have that meeting to make sure that we communicate our intent. We understand it's non-binding, but we did not want to take action, in a space where it looked antagonistic. And so we wanted to make sure we had a clear conversation with their intent, because their intent was their intent. Otherwise they wouldn't have done it. So from our perspective, I think all of us really understand it's non-binding. We could have taken action months ago. But with that being said, we had other board members and, have come and gone during that time. And so it's just been a situation where we want to make sure that this body is in proper order and space intentionally. And I think that we're gonna, or we just need to just have a conversation.
Yeah,
It's just to say, hey, you know, we understand, we appreciate what you're going after, but it's been a long time.
yeah. Through the chair to Commissioner, and I don't want to, you make a very good point. My comments are not meant to be antagonistic, not at all. And I think you make an excellent point. What I don't want to lose with the reshuffling of the city council and assignments is some feeling that, you know, we're going to wait till they have their new assignments and then wait till they get to us to have another conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think that's prudent. But your point's well taken. I do, look, they're the city council for a reason. They will have an opinion on this, and I think it should be absolutely heard. But I do think it's, you know, to your point, you know, we're there, we have to make a decision. What that decision is.
And I think that, Madam Chair, I think that's where our relationship with our liaison comes into play.
I agree.
That's what the liaison is, the council liaison is there for, to make sure we navigate these areas with the intent of the board and with the, you know, quote, the blessing of the council, which they feel good about the representation that's coming out of the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Anybody there? Commissioner Phillip, you have anything before I speak again?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so under our old business, that was one of the issues that was under our old business. Also up under our old business is that, and this kind of gonna slide into new business as well as the old business. We as a board has been, how do I wanna say this? Behind the 8 ball on a lot of things, because for various reasons. Now, I know it was pointed out about one of the resolutions coming in late. But along with the resolutions coming in late, we've been behind the 8 ball when it comes to the evaluation of our CEO. We as a board just stepping up to do what we needed to do. That's the reason that we really, really want you to clear your schedule for the retreat, because so much can come out of that. So much can come out of it. So much can, we can find out that we really need to do so that we can start moving things in the right direction, moving things on time, getting our votes in, making sure that if we are short a month, if we do it in advance, if we are short a month of commissioners, we'll have maybe the next meeting, we'll have enough commissioners to make action on the items that we need to do. Because, as I said, it's just that it's been so many things that we've been behind the ball on. The last evaluation for Mr. Alexander, it was not Mr. Alexander's fault that the evaluation was done late. It was the Board of Commissioners' fault. And then not only was it the Board of Commissioners' fault, one of the things that our commissioners, our new commissioners didn't know. They didn't know that because they were just coming on the board that they were supposed to do an evaluation on Mr. Alexander. Well, anytime a new commissioner come on the board, be it if we are right in the month of doing his evaluation, they got to evaluate him based on what they know about him when they come on the board. Just like what you said, Commissioner Walker, today. You know, you just met him. You already see the work that he's done because you studied. You studied the layout that he gave you. You studied looking at the line or whatever, however you came up with it. You studied. And so that's what we've got to do, and we've got to put that in the heart of our board with doing things on time. Commissioner Briggs, he just made a point about, you know, us being behind, and that we could have did action on the CEO a while ago. But in that same token, there's a lot of things that we was behind on that we should have did action on, that we should have took action on, and we let it linger. We let it linger out there. So, yeah, so moving forward, under, our new business, we as commissioners need to start thinking along those lines and taking this position as commissioner really serious about it, and being here, making sure that we vote, making sure that we put our input in on actions and on resolutions and on things that needs to be taken, because if not, we're just gonna continue to just keep being late on stuff. We're gonna keep being behind on the things that we definitely needs to be making actions on. And so I'm asking all the commissioners, please, on July the 26th, 2021, however you have to do, please clear your schedules to be here. I know that we have some commissioners that is not here today, but Ms. Alexander, I'm hoping you'll get this date out to them in plenty enough time so that they can make sure they hear, that we don't say that they got it the day before and all of that kind of stuff, but they get it when they can, clear their schedules to be at this retreat, because I really think it's gonna be good, because it's gonna be an open forum where we as commissioners can talk freely, we can put together the plans that we need to put together, all of that. Any comments?
Madam Chair, through the chair, through to legal counsel, for the retreat, I'm assuming this is an open meeting
Yes.
under
Yes.
sunshine law?
Correct.
And is there a reason that we would need to call a meeting, or can we just have, would it be prudent to actually have a stated meeting if it's gonna be an open meeting anyhow, where if we decide to take action, we can take action?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, typically retreats are workshop form, but if you plan to take action, we would have a regular notice meeting, and that way you can take action.
Madam Chair, given some of the things that we tasked Mr. Alexander with, especially if an opportunity comes up, I am all in favor of the strategic retreat, but I do think it should be a noticed meeting as well. And then the poor folks can be on the line for 4.5 hours if they so choose, listening to be babbled.
What's the schedule? Because we call it retreat, does that mean?
That's a great question.
Day, or does it?
No,
Does it mean it's still the afternoon?
No, it's gonna be in the afternoon, thank you. I'm glad, Commissioner, you brought that up. It's gonna be in the afternoon. I think we said at 12, right, Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
We're gonna start it at 12 and it'll go from 12 to 5, right? From 12 to 5, yes.
It'll be 2 days for senior staff, but we bring the
Right.
board of commissioners in for that, half a day.
And through the chair to Mr. Alexander, so we're calling this a strategic retreat, but will there be stated objectives that we are gonna come out of with this retreat, and will they be available beforehand of what our objectives are?
Yes,
And you'll provide those to the commissioners?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam
Madam
Chair,
Chair.
so, I apologize, Commissioner, go ahead, please.
No, you were speaking, go ahead.
Madam Chair, you also mentioned being on top of things. If I may make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, as well as more specifically to senior staff, it would be helpful as part of our, I call them KPIs, performance indicators. It would be very helpful as part of our key performance indicator if you had a major contract tracker that showed us contracts with deadlines, expiration dates of deadlines throughout the calendar year, so we know. And I'll demur to our, professional colleagues as to, Commissioner Fernandez and CFO Dennis, as to what size we need to be aware of to bring to the board. I would assume it'd be most. However, it'd be great to have that so that we can see a visual reminder of what's coming up. If we can have that, I know it's massive. We can have those sometimes. That would be extremely helpful.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, I'm
Because-
And then in addition to the contracts, it would also be helpful, at least from my standpoint, is if you see action items coming up that you're going to be bringing to us, giving us at least 60 to 90 days. We don't have to take any action on it, but it's on our new business or old business, just as a reminder. That would be extremely helpful to me because I can give from man. So I'd appreciate the reminder. Thank you.
Good points, Commissioner Walker. Commissioner Phillip, we ready for you.
Thank you. My question was, is there going to be an opportunity, if there are things that the commissioners would like to see added to that agenda, that we would be able to submit those to the executive director or to the chair in order for consideration, to be considered for the retreat agenda?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
that'd be great.
Okay, is there a deadline by which we need to get that to you? Because it may involve preparation of documents or spreadsheets or gathering of information.
Yes, she can send it to me anytime.
Well, you say at the time, but you don't want her to send it the Friday before the retreat. I'm just saying, Mr. Alexander, can you just maybe throw out a date,
Already up to Friday before the retreat.
Friday before the retreat?
Yes, I think that's 23rd.
That's gonna, well, when you gonna send us the packet out? Cause that's what she's talking about. She's talking about information to be in the packet for the retreat.
I thought she wanted to add something to that.
Right.
That's correct, and we would want that information accumulated. And I, as one board meeting, I'd like to have the package at least a week before the retreat, just so that we have an opportunity to study it, and that'll make our time more efficient when we get to the retreat if we've had an opportunity to review it beforehand.
So if you can, hold on, Commissioner.
Okay, so I'll get the package out a week before the retreat. If you have if any commissioners have anything they want to add to it, yes.
No, we saying, Commissioner Phillip.
Yes?
If you can get that information and all commissioners can get that information in by July the 16th. Anything they want to add to the agenda of what Mr. Alexander is going to be putting together for the retreat by the 16th of July. Mr. Alexander is going to send us the packet on the 19th of July.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Were you through, Commissioner Phillip?
Yes, ma'am, that completes my question.
Okay, Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just suggest that Commissioner Walker's recommendations for operations information would be committee work for Cost and Admin Committee. That would give everyone opportunity to, the members of the committee, to make recommendations back to the board, and we wouldn't have to, I don't know, we would be in a better position to consider during their actual board meeting.
Through the chair, Commissioner Griggs, I appreciate that. That's great.
And I'm so glad that y'all commissioners, y'all being really just jumping ahead of me today, but I'm good with it anyway. So that brings us, since Commissioner Briggs brought up about committees, that brings us to the point about the committees, okay? All right, so I know one of our commissioners is not here today, but of course, Commissioner Annabelle is over our finances. You good with that, right? Because you could, when we go through the bylaws, you'll see that falls under the vice chair. So you good with that?
Being the vice chair? Or
No, the finances.
The
Yeah,
finance,
okay,
yes.
the chair, okay, all right. So then we need, the board needs a secretary, and under the secretary is the governance. Commissioner Walker, can you be our secretary? Because I don't want to ask the commission to do it who is not here, because I need, the person to say yay or nay, so that if not, then we could move to someone else.
Yes, to the chair, I'd be happy to serve in that role.
Okay.
And the secretary is an officer position, so
Right.
the board would have to approve that, and I'm just wondering,
I was really doing it. Go
okay,
ahead.
some of these, some of the points about the committees, we may cover in the bylaws. So I wonder, do you want to take action on
No.
the bylaws or talk
Yeah.
about the
Well, see, I was
bylaws?
wondering
Yeah.
about that. I meant to ask you, could I
Right.
move from talking about old and new business and go straight to the bylaws first?
Yeah. 'Cause
And
a
then
lot
come
of-
back to the old and new business,
Correct,
yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
I think, if that's okay, I would probably suggest that it might make more sense to go
Okay.
to the bylaws first.
Okay,
And then once you adopt that, then
Okay.
maybe even after you get your seventh member in August, you know, you can solidify committee appointments and elections. That's another thing we need to talk about.
Well-
Because you as chair and Annabelle Fernandez as vice chair, you had a 90-day, and that expires, at the end of July.
well,
So,
but see, that's, well, we'll get into it when we get to the bylaws, because if we look at the bylaws, I'm just saying, if we look at the bylaws, that wouldn't happen, but we'll get to the
Yeah.
bylaws. We'll get to the bylaws, okay? So, I'm gonna freeze old and new business, and we're gonna move to the bylaws. Okay, can I, get a motion to open for discussion for our bylaws from the Board of Commissioners?
So moved.
It's moved by Commissioner Annabelle, can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Walker. Okay, so, discussion. Have all the commissioners reviewed the bylaws?
I have, if I may, Madam Chair, ask a question.
Okay,
Again, new to the organization. I have been provided a copy of the amended and restated bylaws. I think the old copy was a part of the new board, but if I may ask a question to our esteemed legal counsel, through the chair, how far of a variance are we talking here from, you know, again, having not admittedly, shame on me, having not studied the actual bylaws compared to this version,
right.
how far away are we?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Can I move over here to prevent you from
That would be
having to
great.
turn
Thank
around?
you.
Look at me and I can quickly highlight what I think are more substantive
Yes,
changes.
We just had a motion to discuss the bylaws.
yes,
That indicates we're going to be taking action on the bylaws,
yes,
final action at
yes.
this moment.
Not at this moment, once we do the discussion.
We're going to take final action on the bylaws.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Right, so through the chair, from just a pure Robert Rules standpoint, you have a motion, you have a second, you're in discussion mode. As a chair, as a board member, you want information from me, I think the board member has some information. That's totally in the middle of your discussion. Okay. All right, so, for the most part, I would say probably about 65% of this is what was previously in the board's bylaws. Your last bylaws were adopted in 1999, so they're well overdue, for a refresh. So a lot of the information here is just reorganization, adding a little bit more detail. For example, and I'm just going through the bylaws here, but page 1, the section that goes into 2.2 responsibilities, hiring and evaluating the CEO, dismissing the CEO, that's something that previously was not in the current bylaws. But there's no, I mean, all it just sets up to say is that the board to evaluate your CEO, dismiss your CEO, or new information. So Article 3 and Article 4, Article 5, these are actually provisions that track Florida statutes 421. So all housing authorities are created pursuant to the statutes. So if you have an ordinance, 51A. So this information really just aligns perfectly with the statute. You had a prior board member that prefer to regurgitate the statute in the bylaws because board members thought that, that would be easier for you to be able to look at one document. From a legal standpoint, I always cross references because every time the statute changes or the ordinance code changes, you have to change the bylaws. But we're here with this draft, driven by the work that the Governance and Oversight Committee had done in the past chair. So I did not fight the will of the board. I mean, we're certainly happy to update the bylaws every time there's a change in the statute and every time there's a change in the ordinance. More than happy to do that because I'm billing. So, okay, so I just want to point you to Article 6, and this is on page.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hargis. Before you go to Article 6, because you're getting ready to explain something, I want to go back to. If you don't mind. There are policy directives, and I'm not, but it seems to me that the legal directors cover B and C. That's what it sounds like to me.
It covered what? I'm
It
sorry.
covers B and C. If we have anything in our policy that states what we're supposed to do, that we are the ones who create those policies, that would include hiring and evaluating the CEO
Oh, absolutely.
and dismissing the CEO.
Absolutely. In fact, at the last meeting, you had a policy that was actually presented by your HR director that you just haven't got, you have not approved that yet. But, you know, notice the qualifier. Unless otherwise delegated, the board, so most of this has been delegated to your CEO, okay, to do some of these things. So every single policy you're absolutely not approving as a board, but those that are not, they would need to come to the board, like your evaluation policy. And so I would look at C and B. There's a whole lot more detail that goes along with B and C. This is just a broad brush stroke to give the board an inkling and reminder that you should be evaluating your CEO every year. And then we're gonna punt to your policies that was actually presented, I think it was a couple of months ago, maybe longer than that, that'll have all of that detail because you did have robust discussion. For example, public input from the residents when it comes to your CEO evaluation, that policy would actually cover. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, Ms. Ezekiel, under Article 2.
Now, do you have, I just want to make sure, because I see a big draft on the copy that you're looking at. Can you make sure you have the copy that was in the board packet, Madam Chair? Is there a copy of the board materials?
There you are.
Mine doesn't say draft.
Right, because mine doesn't say draft either, but I see that yours do say draft, so I
Yeah.
want to make sure you're looking at the right thing.
No, have those in the board package?
Well, I have the right draft, I was making sure Madam Chair.
I'm
had the
sorry.
right draft. I'm sorry, so Dwayne, our HR director, who has the board materials, or who sent those out to the board? Do you
I
guys?
sent it out to the board.
Okay.
Have the
I
bylaws.
have it here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just,
okay.
I haven't seen
It looks
them.
like a
They're in the
couple.
email.
Board recommendation and everything. but
They're
I
in the
haven't
email. Yeah.
through the chair to our legal counsel, it appears to be a red line, but it appears to be the correct draft
Yeah.
that
The
our
one that
chair.
says GC,
Okay, so we'll see.
Starts off with
Yeah,
GC.
let's see, yeah.
And can we make sure that the board members have a copy of what was emailed to them just for this meeting, just for the bylaws as we're going through this discussion? Because I think Ms. Hannah.
I can't find them. I apologize if it's on me.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want it printed?
Ms. Hernandez, do you
You
need a
got it.
credit card or do you have it electronic?
That's all right, Ms. Stephanie,
If I
can
can
get it.
find it, I'll be.
She said she gonna get it, Ms. Stephanie.
it's the one that starts with GC.
But
But go ahead, yeah.
what I was finna say, under Article 2,
Okay.
right there where it says, chapter 51A,
Yes,
it should be in 51A.
good.
It's this what I'm talking about, it's just a little typo.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
You want me to give them all to you?
Yes.
Okay.
You can.
So, under Article 5 and 5,
Okay,
it should say everywhere where it say he, it should say he or she.
okay, got it.
And that's,
And I'll globally look for that.
right, okay. That's under Article 5. Under,
And I had stopped at Article 6 through the chair,
okay,
so.
under Article 10 is the same thing. There's two places in there where it needs to be he or she.
Got it,
Okay.
okay. Is that the
That was-
typos? Okay, great.
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
So now, really quick, page 3, Article 6, officers. I just wanted to point out,
Okay.
this nuance pursuant to the Florida statutes and the ordinance code. You're actually only required to have a chair and a vice chair. We went ahead, because this organization has consistently always had a secretary, so just want to make sure you're still on board with having that office. And
You're under Article 6, right?
correct, 6.1.
Through the chair, Ms. Hawes, I mean, I respect that it's always been, but what point does the secretary of this commission actually do? Are the records not maintained
Yeah,
by?
so I think right, and so that, if you look at 6.3, but you're absolutely right. So
Right.
the secretary would not be taking minutes.
No.
He would not, but I think that the goal is, and you see this in other organizations, is that as the secretary, when it comes to things, like there are a lot of things mentioned in the IG's report,
Right.
in this past year about, keeping the minutes, notices, things like that. As the secretary, you might check in with Mr. Alexander to make sure that he is allocating enough staff resources to make sure that these items are being followed.
Okay.
So it's more of an oversight role as a secretary, but we certainly appreciate you are professionals and you don't have time to take minutes, so we wouldn't expect you to do that. Okay, so I do want to point you to 6.2, the terms. So the officers shall be elected each September. I would recommend y'all to consider to change this to August, only because you meet the third Monday of the month. And if you wanted to give new officers who are transitioning starting October 1 time to just have discussions with Mr. Alexander, figure out what their, responsibilities are in more detail, that just gives you a little bit more lead time than like a week before October 1. So that was just a soft suggestive change.
And that's 6.2, right?
Right, 6.2. So
You want to change it from September to August?
Right, correct. So for example, you have a retreat in July, you could hold off, or, based on Mr. Walker's suggestion, you could postpone selecting your officers until August, after you adopt the bylaws. I'm sorry, after you adopt the bylaws. It's not that you couldn't adopt them in July, but you'd have to waive the bylaws to be able to do that. Okay. So if you are okay with that, that would be a friendly amendment that somebody, actually it's a substantive amendment, somebody would need to make an amendment, but hold off, I just have 2 other points that I want to make. So on page 3, here's the difference, going back to Mr. Walker's comment, and this, leads us into the current posture that the board is in. So Mrs. Brock, when Mr. McGowan resigned in January, pursuant to your current bylaws, basically there was a 90-day window where Mrs. Brock as vice chair could hold that position. And so in the board meeting in April, the board decided to extend Mrs. Brock's term as chair for 90 days, and that actually expires July the 19th. And Mrs. Fernandez was elected as vice chair for those 90 days as well. And through the chair.
Okay, but that's what your bylaws read?
No, I'm telling you how we got to the point. So
Yeah, but
currently,
I'm saying, I know that's how we got to it, but we really did it wrong. Right?
what do you mean?
According to the bylaws.
Well, so these bylaws are not, so the current bylaws we're going through, they are not in place. That's
know.
what you're going to adopt. So we're actually going off of your 1999 bylaws,
Okay.
which is not that. The draft that you have in hand, and I have it on my computer. I can have
So
the
this
1999
1999 is
bylaws.
not
or
right?
the current.
This one is not right?
So, okay, so what you have in front of you that's a little bit different from what I have, but it's a draft. The reference to 1999 is just notating when the current bylaws were adopted. So the bylaws that are, like, if you did nothing today, you have a 1999 set of bylaws that's in place that you're bound to follow as a board. And so the draft that you're looking at is a complete overhaul and rework of 1999. As I said, most of the substance is the same, but we just did some formatting. We brought it into 2021 to be consistent with our other independent authorities. And so the only reason why I'm pointing this out is because here's a significant change. Okay, so in your current bylaws, back to Mr. Walker's point, under on page 4, and this would be item B. So it says the vice chair shall perform such duties as are assigned by the chair. But the second sentence, so this is a change. I just want to highlight. You may be totally okay with it, but I want to bring it to your attention. In the event the chair's prolonged absence or disability, the vice chair shall exercise all functions of the chair for a period of up to 90 days. That's very consistent with your current 1999 bylaws that you're bound by today. But here's the change where it says at the expiration of which the vice chair shall assume the position of the chair and a special election shall be held for the vice chair. That's different. So your current bylaws read that at the end of the expiration, then the board just appoints whoever they want the new chair to be. So I just want to point that out as a difference. You may be totally fine with that, but it is a difference.
So the way it reads now, it does, the way it reads now, at the expiration of which the vice chair shall assume the position of chair.
So it's automatic.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that way.
Okay.
Because I know I
Yeah.
didn't sign up for that, so just.
Right. Yeah, no,
technically,
yeah, and that's why I'm
I
pointing
think
it
that's
out.
how it worked. Yeah.
Good, and that's why I'm pointing it out. So if that's something that the board would like to delete, then when we already have one amendment that the board's okay with changing the election to August. If this is something else that the board would like to, maybe we wait until the very end and we can roll this into one amendment, and I'm happy to repeat them all. Then the suggestion would be to just delete that last portion after days.
Right.
And then we would, what the way that I would suggest it read is, which is how your current bylaws read, is that the board will have an election for the chair
Yes.
at the end of the 90 days. Okay? So let me,
I personally think that's a good
right. Okay.
change.
Okay, so that's a possible amendment. Of course, it'll be up to a board member to move on that amendment. Okay, and then if we go to Article 8, this was a change. This is on page 4, 8.1, regular meetings. I changed it. It previously had that the board shall meet no less, meet every month. And I changed this to state that the board shall meet no less than quarterly, which that tracks with the statute. And obviously you can have as many meetings as you want. You can meet weekly if you wanted to, but this just kind of gives you the flexibility from the bylaw standpoint. The only other, let's see, that I want to point out here are the committees. I want to make sure that you are okay with just the 3 committees. So we previously talked about the cost and the admin committee. Here, the proposal is to have 3 standing committees, a finance committee that will presumably do everything that the cost and admin committee was previously doing, anything finance related. And we'd also have a governance and oversight committee that would help keep you on task with respect to elections and, any sort of all things governance.
Well, actually, if I may say, actually, it's 2 committees.
Yeah.
You have the cost and admin, and the cost and admin deal with the operations of the agency, and then the finance deal with the finance, so it's 2 committees.
Right,
But
Right,
now
but it's one, and actually, you know, your past chair, he dissolved like all committees, and he had these 3 committees.
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, long as they know that we can bring to the finance committee, the operation report, the whole thing. That's fine.
In fact, the chair, Mr. Alexander, I think the intention, if I recall, was that the finance committee would essentially do the cost, the asset management, the
Yes,
admin,
okay.
and the finance, so that it was just if we have 2 or 3 together, then it's more meetings and it's the same numbers involved.
Right.
Yeah, it's for efficiency, that would be perfect.
Right. Yeah, and it's pretty broad. The description of finance committee is review all things financial related to the housing authority.
Yes.
So that's pretty broad. Okay, and then we had our tenant relations committee. So those are your 3 standing committees, and then the chair, you know, can appoint, you know, other committees, ad hoc committees. But under these standing committees, they're ex officio committee chairs. So for example, the vice chair automatically is the chair of finance, and the secretary is automatically the chair of governance. The tenant relations committee, the chair can appoint that chair. But I just wanted to, so if you adopt the bylaws today, then you're automatically, you've already chosen your chair of finance, you've already chosen your secretary, so I just want to make sure.
I don't think I can be the vice chair because I know I wouldn't be able to commit to the 90-day period to be the chair in the case I needed to.
Okay.
So I'm happy to be the finance
Yeah.
committee chair, but I don't know that I can be the vice chair.
Yeah.
Right, and you can delete, you can take that out. And so this is something that's making the board uncomfortable. Again, this was prior discussions with some of the board members, but yeah, it's easier to just say the chair of the board assign the committee chairs, and that gives you more flexibility.
Leanne, go ahead.
No, you please go. I think you're going to say that. Yeah.
I was just going to say with respect to Commissioner Fernandez's concern that language is there just to assume a transition of power immediately. I think that if something were to happen and you automatically have to, you know, get put in a position where you're serving for 90 days, then all the acting chair would have to do is say, we should need to have an election immediately because I can't serve. So, you know, you can do that. So just that we can have someone there because you never know why the chair had to leave. Was it a regular transition or was it abrupt? But you can't, you know, you just don't want to have that seat vacant. And then you can call a special meeting and say, you know, the chair resigned, I can't do it. We're going to have an election right now. So I just don't want you to feel like you're boxed in.
Fair enough, it's just, we can just write the bylaws, but yeah, I'm
Right.
happy to.
Right, and that's another reason why it just might be better to adopt these bylaws, have your strategic meeting in July, and then from an officer position, you know what's coming, how, you know, if you guys have a busy retreat and lots of things on the list, then you know not to put your name in the hat for the permanent, you know, chair selection or vice chair selection that you'd be making in this meeting. So you lost one member. Okay.
Through the chair, I would feel much more comfortable if we're going to vote on the bylaws today, Madam Chairwoman, through the chair to Ms. Hodges. I'd feel much more comfortable if these were not automatic appointments, that they are appointed by the chairwoman and affirmed. You know, just an automatic ex officio appointment makes me a little nervous.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to write that down as a tentative amendment. And then.
And one more, can we go back, and I apologize, go back to I think you said it was section 2 where we, for some reason, decided that we're going to recite the code as opposed to just reference the code.
Correct.
You know, due respect to my other commissioners, I don't know if they were here or not, but as a lawyer, that would drive me insane. So I will make also I guess it would technically be a substantive amendment to go back to an actual cross-reference to the code. So we are not updating these bylaws every legislative session.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. I will add, yeah, I'm certainly on your side. I will add that as a tentative amendment. And then the only other amendments that I had in 8 I'm sorry, let me finish. There weren't any, so everything else, I feel like, you have the process by which you amend, committee quorums, all of that standard conflicts of interest, you're gonna follow Robert rules. I felt like that's very consistent with what's currently in your existing bylaws. But I did under 8.3, I wanted to add language where it says, and this would be a global change, where it mandates that you're holding any sort of meeting at your principal offices. I want to add language or any such other place or means as permitted by law, because we saw this in the pandemic where electronic meetings were actually allowed. And so I just want to give the board that flexibility with respect to how and the manner in which you're holding your meetings. And it could be that the legislature, changes the laws and allow you to have electronic meetings that are more efficient. And then in 8.7, I want to add a cross reference to chapter 189, which applies to special districts. And there's certain.
Yes, I'm doing everything.
In fact, under chapter 189, it's required that you're 7 days in advance. So those are all of my suggested changes. And I don't consider any of these changes to be.
You say posted 7 days in advance?
Well, the change to the bylaws would simply be under 8.7, where it talks about following the sunshine laws. I would change that title to say open meeting sunshine laws and other applicable laws, and then add a specific reference to chapter 189 Florida statutes. And then that way it covers any and all requirements for dependent special districts that you have to follow by law. Then, we would know to follow those. Okay?
Madam Chair.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Because you're in that section, right before that in section 8.6, which is the quorum section, as you know, thank God, we have 6 members currently and have a 7th member that is going through the process. But you will recall that a number of times during the period where we only had 4 or 5 members, some of the actions that needed to be taken we were unable to take them because rather than it being a quorum or an action, affirmative vote of the members present, the majority of the members present, it required a minimum of 4 votes. And it can stay that way, but I just want to make sure that everyone, including our new commissioner, understands that if there comes a time when there are only 5 members on the board, it makes it much more difficult for us to take action on any item because of this requirement in this section. Is that correct, Ms. Hodges?
Right. That's correct. And so under Florida statutes and the ordinance code, it simply says a majority of the members present. So if you had.
Right, this is more restrictive. Ours is much more restrictive than that. Is that correct?
Right, correct. So if you had your slimmest quorum of 4 members present, all you would need is 3 members. That would be majority of the members present to pass an action. So in your bylaws,
that's correct.
Tied your hands because you're requiring the 4. But I will tell you that it's very consistent with other independent agencies such as JHA, JHFA, JEA, where they have an affirmative 4. And there was discussion about this point at the council level. And I think, the current council was very comfortable in their discussion of having more members rather than less, a majority sort of be that 4 as far as approving. And that's just information. That's not binding on this board, but it's just giving you a flavor of what other agencies do.
Through the chair.
Are there some agencies that are just majority? You told us which ones are 4 required. Are all of the agencies affirmative 4?
Yeah, so for example, off the top, the Jacksonville Housing Finance Authority, the JEA, I could probably check the JPA, but I think there's a good number where it is 4. And these boards, by the way, are 7-member boards, just like your board. So like JEA has 7
Right,
members. Yeah.
and I don't know, and then there probably have been other boards that we had an extended period of time when we only had 4 members, and so it made it very difficult to get things done, including the seating of a CEO. That was part of the delay in that process as well.
So through the chair to Ms. Hodges and actually and to the rest of my commissioners, my concern with a 4-member affirmative vote is what you've all described is we're in a rock and a hard place, right? If the mayor's office or others do not appoint and then confirm, we're sitting here with our hands. I might make the recommendation open for discussion, Madam Chair, that maybe it's the greater of 60% of the appointed and confirmed members, or in the event they're not all appointed, 4 or 3 or the majority, or somewhere along those lines, because what you don't want is an agency that can't act. And while that may be debated, I think the worst thing we can do is tie our hands and not act if we had to act. But I'll.
And that was my point in bringing it up, Commissioner, because we have experienced that to a great extent in the recent past.
Yeah. Through the chair to the commissioner, it's a very good point.
Madam Chair, I can recall sitting in your seat and I was very frustrated by not being able to, because we weren't able to use majority. However, after reflection and understanding more about why that rule is in place, I'm more apt to lean towards the 4 affirmative. And my reason for that is that it keeps us honest when it comes to standing up for the board, not just us, but the entire system. And this organization deserves to have a full board to do the business. And I think that if we didn't have 4 affirmative, no reflection on frustration, we may not be progressing towards having something, because we do have turnover. And so I think that if everyone's doing what, working, as you mentioned earlier, from being behind, then we'll be in a position where we can continue to do business.
So is this something that we need to vote on at this point, Lasikia? Would it be in order for me to make a motion, Madam Chair, to change it to majority of the members present and maybe a minimum 3 affirmative?
So through the chair, so we already have a motion and a second, and I have a number of amendments that I can restate. And if I can leave out the quorum, because I don't have a sense of if there's a consensus or not on that one, so we could separate out that amendment. But I can certainly read off all these other amendments that I think there is a consensus on, and then a member can move that amendment second, and then that's been properly moved and on the floor. Okay? So my first amendment is on page 1, and it's 2.1. This is a typo. We're going to just insert the word "in" after set forth. The second amendment is on page 3, 5.5, where there's a reference to he. We're going to make that he or she. The third amendment is 6.2. And we're going to change the election of the officers from September to August of each year. The fourth amendment is on 6.3B, page 4. So basically we're going to change this language so that the sentence ends at the end of 90 days. So in the event of the chair's prolonged absence or disability, the vice chair shall exercise all functions of the chair for a period of up to 90 days period. At the expiration, or the board shall elect a new chair at the expiration of the 90 days, period. I think that's all we need. So.
I thought can it be or sooner?
Oh, okay, yeah, certainly, or sooner. No less, or 90, you're talking about the 90 days? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
'Cause say that the
Yeah.
vice chair doesn't want to serve,
got it.
you know.
Yeah,
box
I
into that.
see. Yes, we can add or sooner. And then my next amendment is on page.
So we changing the wording where it says that when the vice chair steps up, then the board would do a official election to do a new, chair
Chair.
after
Correct,
the 90 days.
after the 90 days, which is consistent with the way your current 1999 bylaws read today.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, so that,
Okay, and then the next change is 8.3. We're just going to add the language to allow or such other place or means as permitted by law. And then we're going to hold off on the quorum discussion. The next one is 8.7, open meeting, sunshine law, and other laws. We're going to insert a reference to Chapter 119 Florida statutes.
where you at? I'm sorry.
This is 8.7 on page 5, my page 5. Add a reference to Chapter 189, which is the special district statute. You are a dependent special district. Florida statutes there. And then in section 9.1A and B, we are going to strike the automatic ex officio vice chair positions relative to the chair and the vice chair, so that the chair can appoint each of those committee chairs, okay? And then number 8 changes on 10.1. Chair, you made a reference to wherever there's the he, we're gonna also add or she. And that's it. That's all I have. So if somebody wants to move that as an amendment,
What did you do about 8.6? What did you say about that?
we are going to separate that out because I can't get a feel
So that
if
was
there's a
taken-
consensus
that was
or
gonna be
not.
taken out?
No, we're just going to vote on it as a separate amendment. That way it either is approved or it's denied as a board. But I think we have consensus on these amendments that I just read. So if somebody wants to move that as an amendment, get a second.
I'll move the amendment consistent with Ms. Hodges' reading thereof.
Perfect.
I second.
It was moved and second by the Board of Commissioners, moved by Commissioner Walker, second by Commissioner Annabelle. All in favor for the corrections for our bylaws?
All right.
Aye.
Right, that amendment. Okay, so, and I forgot.
Did you miss the, I was
cross
wondering.
reference. Yes. Okay, so if we could move as a separate amendment, and this would be not really a substantial change. So wherever we are duplicating language in the state statutes or the ordinance code, I would be removing that and replacing it with a cross-reference, okay? So if you want to move
Madam
that.
Chair, so moved that we remove language from the bylaws per Ms. Hodges and cross-reference appropriately to the Florida statutes.
I second.
Even though she's willing and able to do the work.
And charge
For me.
The motion was moved by Commissioner Walker, second by Commissioner Annabelle, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, great. So that leads us to our last amendment, and I might just add, just for the benefit of the board, if someone makes an amendment to, on page 5, 8.6, if you were to just strike the sentence or affirmative votes, by your ordinance code and by Florida statutes, it would just be a majority of the members present. So you wouldn't need to add anything else. You would just need to get rid of this restriction. And if for any member that's in favor of doing that, I might point you to 13.2 that also has an affirmative vote of 4 members for any amendment to the bylaw. So I don't know on a principle basis Right. So you might feel like when it comes to amending the bylaws, you do want to have four. But if you don't feel that way, you just want every action to just be a majority of the members present, then I would also probably suggest you think about amending 13.2. So I'll leave that for somebody to move that.
Madam Chair, if I, and I guess, I don't know if I'm out of order opening, can we have a discussion about this?
Oh, absolutely.
Madam Chair, I'm sitting here thinking about it. Commissioner Griggs, I think your point is well taken. I wonder, however, if we can't split the proverbial baby and make a suggestion that in the event a commissioner seat is vacant for a stated period of time, it will go to a majority rule. I continue to worry about a commission not being able to act if for some reason we're waiting on 4 votes. I feel that's hamstrung this agency in the past, and that just worries me. But I'm open to having a conversation about that as well.
Yeah, and if I could, Madam Chair, to council and the board members, I think one way to accomplish that might be to consider my previous recommendation, making it a minimum of 3 requirement. That way, if there is 1 vacancy, well, but then you have a 3-3 tie. And it still wouldn't go anywhere. But if there were 5 or 1 abstain, then you could, in fact, with 3 affirmative, be able to move something forward. So, yeah, be interesting to see. Any suggestions from our legal counsel on what we might be able to do?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would be hesitant to put a minimum of 3, because if you had 6, or, I'm sorry, I mean, you can craft this however you want.
Or just majority. I mean, if we just said majority and left it out, majority of the members present.
Right, and that's
simple majority.
That's currently what the statute says. So we wouldn't even need to add any language, because you're currently.
We would have to take that out though, wouldn't we?
Correct.
We would have to take the 4 out, yeah.
Exactly, and then this paragraph is called quorum. I mean, that's, the focus of this paragraph, the number of votes. Again, as long as you have that quorum, it's always going to be a majority of the number that's present.
Madam Chair, make this easy on everybody. Hopefully, I want to make a motion that that we keep 8.6 as written for our 3rd amendment to the bylaws.
Well, through the chair, you wouldn't even need a motion for that, because the current draft
Is there?
of the board.
Okay, I was trying to think you through so we could
Yeah.
discuss it and make a decision, but
Right.
But through the chair, Commissioner Griggs, I like where your head's at. I'll move that we strike the second
There you
sentence
go.
of 8.6 for purposes of moving to a discussion vote, Madam Chair.
second.
That we remove.
I just don't want to say that.
That's right. I'm moving, Madam Chair, to strike the second sentence of section 8.6 of the bylaws.
I'll second.
I
I
second
think you already
it.
have a second.
I already have a second.
So I think
Okay.
for a vote, Madam Chair, or discussion technically.
Right.
So, okay, so you're gonna take that out?
Correct.
Yeah. Which, if it passes, it will leave us in a position where majority of a quorum can do business. And so at this point, I'd like to state one last time that if that were to occur, we had a quorum of 4 members and 3 people came to a conclusion, then we have less than a majority of this board making a decision on behalf of the board. That is, I believe, why the 4 affirmative is in place, and that is my caution. So I would hate to feel like 3 members of a 7-member board acted on behalf of this entire body.
Madam Chair, through the chair to Commissioner Griggs, I do respect that, that, and I'm just coming at it from a different angle, which is, I appreciate the other agencies have a 4-member board, or a 4-member affirmative vote. I do think, and it makes me, Florida statute says we can do it with a majority. I don't think we need to hamstring ourselves. That all said, I will throw in with this caution with you, Commissioner, which is if there is only 3 members out of a 4-member board and they're voting, they better be making darn sure that they realize there's 3 members voting and affirming something where there should be a 7 board. But respectfully, Commissioner Griggs, I'll stand by my amendment.
Call a question.
Yep.
Well, you call a question, technically you need to vote on that, but I think, have we wrapped up the discussion? No more comments, and you can just move right into the vote.
On the amendment.
On the amendment,
Yeah.
correct, on the amendment.
Okay, you want to explain the amendment that y'all will take out? You gonna take this out?
Right, so this third amendment is 8.6, and the amendment is to strike the second sentence, which reads, 4 affirmative votes shall be required to accomplish an act of business. So the effect of taking that sentence out, you just revert back to Florida statutes, which is just the majority of the members present.
And through the chair to Ms. Hodges, correct me if I'm wrong, but under our current bylaws, do we not have to have 4 votes to actually make this amendment proper?
You're correct, right? You do. 4 of you. That's true.
The irony is too much, Madam Chair. The irony is too much.
Okay, so we closing the discussion on, the discussion, right?
Correct.
Okay, all in favor of 8.6, the second line being removed?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Phillip, did you hear us?
Yes,
Did you vote?
aye. I said aye. Yes, I did say aye. Mm-hmm.
All opposed?
Nay.
Yeah, so just announce that
The amendment passed?
it
Yep.
failed.
I mean, failed?
Yes,
Oh.
because you
okay.
need 4 votes.
She voted.
Oh, I thought you said.
No, you needed 4 votes in favor of the amendment, so the amendment fails. I know she voted, so because so it was 3-2, so the amendment fails.
Who's the other nay?
Wait, what's that?
Who's the other nay?
Chair.
This is the chair.
The
Oh,
chair.
you voted against it?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the bylaws as twice amended.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
My question is, and I think I may be confusing this with city council, but, can we reconsider this at a later time? We don't have to wait a year before we come back to amend these bylaws again.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. You can amend the bylaws at any time. There is an
Yeah,
annual
all right.
that to be on a regular cycle, but you can certainly amend it anytime before then.
That's it?
Right.
Okay. We're ready for a vote. All in favor of the bylaws?
Aye.
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 Okay, so our bylaws was approved with the necessary corrections to our bylaws.
Through the chair, do we want to make a motion to extend your chairmanship and the vice chairmanships through to August, because technically it expires July 18th. So would that make sense, since you've just adopted these bylaws, if somebody wants to make that motion to extend for another 45 days, I guess?
I'll move to extend the officer positions for the next 45 days.
Or let's say until the August meeting, because I'm not sure.
Till the
45
August
days
meeting.
Accurate, yeah.
Second.
It was moved in by Commissioner Walker, second by Commissioner Briggs. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Through the chair, one final question. Our section 8.5 in the bylaws does not stop us from doing the retreat the way we have it structured. It says no formal action may take place, that we said we're gonna
Right.
make it a meeting.
Exactly. So
We
we
need to
will,
make it a meeting.
we will notice it, because typically when you're having a workshop, that means members can actually participate electronically. That's been approved. It's a workshop and you don't take action at a workshop. But since the commissioner wants to put us in a posture to take action, that just means that Dwayne and staff will notice it like he does every regular board meeting. Thank you for that.
Okay, so according to the agenda, we were discussing old and new business. I think I believe we were through, unless the commissioner have some new business that they would like to bring to the board. I think we were through with the old and new. Moved from it.
Madam Chair, I have some additional new business if it's still open.
Yes.
Okay.
It is, that's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Mr. Alexander, one of the things that is, I heard a lot about, has been this Hilltop Villages. I fully recognize that JHA, correct me if I'm wrong, is not involved in Hilltop Villages, except we may have some vouchers there, is that correct?
No, we don't have any vouchers there. Actually, they have project-based vouchers there, but that project-based voucher program is not managed by the Housing Authority, it's managed by Federal HUD.
Okay, so through the chair, Mr. Alexander, I would think it would be prudent of us to reach out to current ownership, to current HUD, and see what, if anything, we can do here. Again, I go back to new, but your KPIs here speak for themselves. There needs to be, we need to be putting a helping hand out there, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's stepping in as a third-party manager. I don't know if that's, if they need a, for lack of a better term, a grant or a loan or something. But even though it is not our problem, it's still within the purview of, public housing, in my opinion, project housing. And we need to make ourselves known and aware. And I'd love to have, by the July meeting, a report out on what, if anything, we can do to assist here.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I met with those folks, the ownership down at City Hall about a week and a half ago, and offered my services if they need from any assistance. We will render some assistance. The regional director for HUD was there, and also the director from HUD from Atlanta was there. So none of the local directors there, it was the regional directors there. And they had code enforcement, a couple of people from the city. The company is typical of what happens here in Jacksonville. The ownership is out of Seattle, Washington. They got poor management there. We try to help them any way we possibly can.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Alexander, I think the better if you haven't figured it out, I'm not exactly a laissez-faire board member. I think, let me restate my request. It's much more of a, we do need to be helping here. What do we need to be doing? As opposed to a offering an assistance and hope they take us up on it. It's not acceptable. And the fact that we know about it, we need to be doing something, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, that's in my humble opinion. And this may go back to our prior conversation earlier about buy the units. You know, if it's that far gone for them, and they're saying a couple $100,000, I think is what they're saying, will fix which, if that can be done, you know, good for them, but I think, all due respect, we could do a better job.
Yes.
So I'll reiterate my request to look at that. I'm not saying we have to do anything, but we need to be there looking at that.
I think that's a viable option for the housing authority. Typically, in most cities, the housing authority controls all the vouchers and the project-based vouchers. But here, they have several thousand vouchers that's out there, it's project-based, that's just not managed by the housing authority.
So through the chair, why, is there a way to bring that back within JHA's purview?
It could be an option for the housing authority to be able to do some third-party management and be able to handle those vouchers to project-based. I'm kind of puzzled why HUD never asked the housing authority to manage the property anyhow, because the minute the property is becomes condemned, then they issue them emergency vouchers for the housing authority to issue to the families, and then the housing authority manage the vouchers then.
To move out?
Yes. Similar to Roosevelt Gardens, they had vouchers there that was project-based. They had a problem there. The housing authority stepped in for a fee and got all the vouchers there, issued all the vouchers. I think it was like 212 or 215, something around that amount.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Alexander, I again, in my experience, I do think it's unique that with certain projects, based on my experience with our housing authorities, I think it's unique that we aren't doing some sort of third-party management or involved with the project based in addition to our public housing. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into.
Yes, quite a bit. We just received our AMO designation a couple months ago.
Wow.
And one of the key components of getting that designation so that we can go out and do some third-party management, because we currently funded from HUD, but at some point, because of the pandemic, I can see that the funding is going to dwindle down. And for folks that have been in this industry for as long as I've been in this industry, I remember when it was funding less than 80%, and there was a problem out there. So it's incumbent upon this agency to venture out and do some other type of business.
And then, Madam Chair, and this is maybe a discussion for the Board of Commissioners, although I would seek Mr. Alexander's input. One of the things that that I would appreciate a conversation with our colleagues at various other agencies, specifically City Council and DIA, is we see a lot of affordable housing and talk about affordable housing coming into our community through various programs, whatever they may be. I would venture that it would be beneficial, even an advisory role for this board to take up and help review some of the, what's the word I'm looking for, some of the use restrictions or income restrictions or rent restrictions. Because again, to I think was it your point or Mr. Alexander's, somebody's point was, look, even, a 3-bedroom house at $2,000, maybe it qualifies under a certain program for quote affordable, but that doesn't really help our families here that need affordable housing. So I think it would be a good cross section of agency interplay, that when these things come up, if somebody's looking for a DIA grant or maybe they're going to City Council for a REF grant and they're going to give quote unquote affordable housing, I would, hope that our colleagues would want to have us look at that through the lens of the housing authority. I think that would be important. So, I would ask maybe the chair, because I'm not sure that this should necessarily come from Mr. Alexander per se, but I think it's a conversation we should be having with our city council liaison. You know, these approvals and projects that are coming up, they get vetted for housing, but not through us. That seems a little obtuse.
Let's see.
I'd love my commissioner's thoughts on that, because that's a pretty big,
Well,
that's a pretty big topic.
Well, if you will, we've had this conversation before.
Okay.
And Commissioner Phillips can tell you more, as she has been a part of previous administrations and a longtime member of this board and former chair. It is difficult has been difficult for this agency to engage in that level of response for multiple reasons. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it's not that we have not been trying. So for one, there are several projects that I know of personally that I think that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Griggs. This is Rosalind speaking
Go ahead.
again. And you're exactly right. We have attempted, and one of the ways really, if you look at the comprehensive plan of the city, as far as housing and affordable housing is concerned, certainly the Housing Authority should be one of the lead agencies or lead organizations that is coalescing or working with not only the private sector, but nonprofit organizations, private nonprofit organizations as well, that are involved in the provision of housing and having an umbrella agency. And there have been attempts at that in the past over the years in various administrations, where we had the Housing Roundtable was one of those efforts where the agencies, both private and public, as well for-profit and non-profit, were involved in planning and implementing projects to try and alleviate and address, not alleviate because I don't know that we'll ever alleviate it all, but certainly to address the need for additional public housing, or not public housing, affordable housing, if you will. We called it on many of those occasions workforce housing, because there were some people who didn't like the nomenclature of affordable housing because it was associated with public housing, and so the terminology of workforce housing was used quite a bit. But I look forward to ideas and ways in which this organization can take a lead role in working to bring all of those agencies, both public and private, for-profit and not-for-profit, together and looking at how best to address the provision of affordable housing, because that ought to be just a primary, I don't want to say benefit, but that ought to be just a basic need that is being provided and that everyone has access to, decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Without that, none of the rest really works as it should. So thank you very much for the conversation, and look forward to the action that will follow the conversation.
Through the chair of the commissioner, thank you. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, to Mr. Alexander, I mean, you certainly know the needs that are out there. I mean, when you couple the needs for the public housing, not affordable, public housing that we need in Jacksonville, in addition to the affordable housing, to my colleague commissioner's point, there is no reason why this agency should not be a preeminent agency at the lead of this, as opposed to, just running what we have. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that we need to expand the outlook on that. And to the extent that I can be helpful as a commissioner, sitting down with other parties to have those conversations, I think that's important. I will add, the commissioner brought up something that I think is interesting that I do think you need to vet. There is, correct me if I'm wrong, through the chair to our council, there's nothing that prohibits us from public-private partnerships, is there?
No, in fact, you're already doing that
We have
right
a
now.
couple, right? Yeah. So I would encourage, Mr. Alexander, for you to be out there meeting with our private party counterparts and encouraging them, hey, you got something you want to do, talk to us. I mean, we clearly, thanks to Mr. Dennis's reporting, have surplus funds that we can have a conversation. And then last but not least, and I just lost my train of thought. I will make mention, and again, through the chair to council, does the city of Jacksonville have a surplus lands,
What do you mean?
access to surplus lands that the city owns that has no
Oh,
use for?
absolutely.
The next conversation, Mr. Alexander, needs to be a conversation with the city. What surplus lands does the city have where it makes sense for us to do some sort of a development? And I go back to, tax exempt 501c3 bonds, which this agency would qualify for, which would be paid for, from the revenues. So we're not, and assuming that the value of the project makes sense to Mr. Dennis here, something we should be looking at. There are things that we can do that we don't have to wait for a private party or necessarily anybody else to be looking at, is my point.
I did the chair, just to follow up on that so that you know the process. Dwayne should be on the list every time the city is, trying to sell lands. It actually gives a right of first refusal, if you will, to city agencies, independent authorities like Dwayne. But obviously with the more valuable pieces of property, those are targeted discussions that, your CEO would need to be having.
Correct. That makes sense.
There's a flow of property that Dwayne always have, he's able to access that along with the other agencies if there's a need.
And through the chair to Dwayne, you have access to that information or can get it?
Yes, I can probably get it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay. So now to, Ms. Lazikia. So now take me back to, setting up, for the auxiliary, to go back to the appointments for the auxiliaries, for the, chairs for the different,
Right, so I think, what we talked about, if I'm not mistaken, is that your seventh member will very, very likely come on before your next board meeting. So you'll have a full 7-member board by the time you have your August meeting, your next regular, your August meeting, because we changed the July retreat to a regular meeting. And so I thought the purpose of extending your chairmanship as well as Ms. Hernandez, vice chairmanship, was to wait and do all of that under the permanent chair in August. So I think you could probably get through another month here, and that way you have a full board and more hands to assign.
okay, so that being all of that, I think that was all that I wanted to cover up under new business. Did any other commissioner, as Commissioner Walker had new business, did any other commissioner have any new business that they wanted to bring before the board? If not, then we're gonna close, our meeting out. We're gonna close our meeting out for the Board of Commissioners for the Jacksonville Housing Authority, June the 21st, 2021 at 4:50. We now will open for our Redwood Park for Board of Commissioners at 4:50. June 21, 2021. Any public comments? Seeing that there's no public comments, we will move to our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for May 17, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Walker, second by Commissioner Briggs. All in favor to accept our minutes for May 17, 2021? Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Still with us, Commissioner Phillip?
You got 4.
Yeah.
That roll.
Financials, by Mr. Dennis.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Once again, we're on the May financials for Brentwood Park, and we're looking at our budgeted income of 67%. Our actual income is coming in at 73%, so we're 6% over on our income, which is very good. For our expenses, we are 3% unfavorable. We're looking at 66% of our budget, and we're actually in at 70%. Really close, but overall, the property is doing well with about $330,000 in income. Any questions?
Seeing that there's no question, Mr. Dennis, we can thank you for our financials. And if that, no other questions, that close out our Brentwood Park meeting at 4:50, is that 53, 54?
2, 3.
Thank you so much to the Board of Commissioners for your participation and your diligence today to make this board meeting a success. Meeting is adjourned.
July.
Yeah, we're currently on the thing.
Approved. It's like a new.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
So
So,
Carlos officially retired?
no, he doesn't leave until the end.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
But-
Who's that?
Commissioners, this is Rosalind. I'm gonna sign off.
We're done.
Hello. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.